Alright, you'll have to excuse me for making a dark video. I'm really just trying to keep myself sane while I'm driving right now. So I'm just keeping the, just having someone to talk to right now. So it's a pleasure to be talking to you all right now. And you all are helping me. I don't know what to talk about, so I guess I'll talk about the Parsha. Parshas Vayishlach. We were talking before about the question of the meaning of Malachim Mamish. And as we mentioned that the Targum Onkelos here, unlike the previous two verses, translates Malachim as Isdagin, which indicates that we're dealing with human messengers and not angelic emissaries. So what's the meaning of this here, of the Isdagin, of Malachim Mamish? Is Rashi arguing with Onkelos, or is Rashi agreeing with Onkelos here? That's the main question, I would say, that we have to ask ourselves. And basically, excuse me, like I said before, it would seem that if he was agreeing with Onkelos, he would say Kesargumo. That's what he usually does when he's agreeing with Onkelos, is he says it's according to the Targum. But instead he says Malachim Mamish. Which is a more difficult question. What does that mean? And again, it could be translated either way, because really, what's the word for malachim? That I think was where it comes down to the question here, is what does the word malach mean? Which is which? Meaning, we know a malach is a messenger. A few times in the Bible, malachim are isdagin in Onkelos, or in other Targumim, and Targum Yonis and whatever. So we know that the Hebrew word malach means messenger, just like the Greek word angelos or angelos or whatever also means messenger. The word evangelism comes from that of giving over the message. Angelism, that word angel is in the middle of evangelist or evangelism, or evangelical. So again, this which is which? That's the question. Meaning, are angels named after human messengers, or are human messengers named after angels? If you ever, I have the occasion to watch videos from many different religions as part of my work, especially now with the COVID-19. My job is pretty much to curate videos for various religions. And so there were two speakers from the 50s and 60s that I've grown quite fond of outside of my own tradition. Both of whom I've been aware of for a long time, and both of them I've been fond of since I've encountered them. So from the Roman Catholic Church, I think a lot of people know that I'm a big fan of Bishop Fulton Sheen, and from the Eastern traditions, Buddhist and Hindu and so forth, Taoist, a little bit of everything he's got mixed in there. I've become very fond of, and for a long time been aware of, Alan Watts, who's a great scholar of world religion. I believe he was a student of Houston Smith. So in any event, either that or they were both students of perhaps Campbell. Were they students of Joseph Campbell, both of them? I don't quite remember right now. I'm a little bit, but or maybe they were both students of an Indian teacher, and I'm totally off out of left field. But I know there's some association between Houston Smith and Alan Watts, but I might be a little confused. So this is where I'm holding here. Anyway, they both have comments on angels that I find to be appropriate to discuss here, since we are talking about angels, and that angels appear so much in the stories of Jacob. It would seem difficult to imagine that here, where Jacob is sending messengers, and that the Hebrew word is malachim, why would we assume that them not to be angels, right? Because everything else, Jacob is dealing with angels all the time. Certainly this part of his life, he's encountering angels, both as he's leaving to go to Laban and as he's coming back from Laban. Angels are very prominent in his travels, as opposed to some of his other the rest of the time, the stories of Jacob. You don't have the outward discussion of angels as you do. There's peripherally, references that could be interpreted as angelic, but in general, it's, he had the encounters with angels on the way to and on the way back from Laban. But it seems like this was the man who really was involved with angels, and they were obvious angels. Meaning, when Abraham encountered angels, he did not know they were angels. It's interesting, I was reading today Islamic interpretations, the story of Lot, and how Lot was apparently, the Jewish tradition would seem to indicate that Lot was aware that he was hosting angels, and both the Islamic and, to a certain extent, the Christian interpretations would be that he was hosting angels unawares, as the Christian Bible would say in the book of Hebrews. And with all this being said, it's a question. How do we deal with angels and so forth? What it was Jacob encountering here? And then the other place where it says V'yavek ish imo, and then he realized that he was an angel when Jacob was wrestling with an angel. Who was this angel? He was Satan. He was the angel of Esau, which I know offends people when they hear that. So, how did that happen? And Rabbi Bar Tzadok said it wasn't just an accident. He conjured up this angel. much how magicians, ritual magicians throughout history, have had history of conjuring up angels or demons. Jacob was aware of that, and and Jacob attests to that because he says that with his encounters with Laban, if Laban thinks he's a trickster and a magician and so forth, a ritual magician, an occult practitioner. So Jacob pretty much, Medrash says, whatever Laban could get away with. So Jacob was a greater expert than Laban was. And, also, we have this idea that Jacob was somehow, being the son-in-law of Laban, of Lavan, that he was, considerably younger than him, right? But if you understand that, and obviously he was, because Yitzchak Avinu, when they made the shidduch, so Lavan was there. So obviously Lavan was older than Yaakov, but was he considerably older than him, or was he a little bit older than him? It depends, how we interpret. There's different interpretations. It would seem he would have been considerably older, because it's assumed that Yaakov was already he was much older than his wives were. Considerably older than them. But yet, how did Laban at such an advanced age have such young children? Which is not such a question. All these things are not very clear. They're discussed in Midrashim and in the Meforshim, but there's different interpretations. So it's not that any one parish or Medrash is, for lack of a better term, the gospel truth. Any event. So here, this is where we're holding here with this story. So we're dealing now with Jacob and Esau confronting each other once again after many, many years had passed, right? Well over 20 years had passed since they'd last seen each other. And how do we interpret this this meeting? Like we said before, the Chazal said that whenever we said the other day, yesterday I believe was when we said this, right? Today's Monday. It's been a long day. So the sages, the Chazal say, the sages of the Talmud say that when they would go, like when Rav Yehuda Hanasi and other Tanoim would have to go and have audience with the Roman officials, they would learn Parshas Vayishlach beforehand. And from there they would get insights into how to deal with Esau, how Jacob should deal with Esau. So, what's the meaning of that there? How do we understand that? Jacob and Esau. Again, Israel and Edom, and the Jews and the Romans. And there's so much to discuss here with this question, and the synagogue and the church and their interactions. It could also be understood here, since the church, took more or less the mantle of Rome, certainly the Roman church, and the Protestant churches grew out of the Roman church. They didn't. The Reformation didn't happen among the Eastern Orthodox, right? So in general, we're dealing with this same question, because Esau is still our brother, and the truth of the matter is, the synagogue and the church are still brothers. And yet, how do we deal with it? So let's get back to what I was mentioning about Fulton Sheen and Alan Watts, because I kind of got distracted there, didn't I? So Fulton Sheen, he would always talk of the guy who sets up his chalkboard and erases the chalkboard as my angel, right? You never saw the angel, but he would always say, my angel this, my angel that. And so that's an educated man's term, because Fulton Sheen was a highly educated man. To call a little messenger an angel. And then the other thing I mentioned was Alan Watts. So Alan Watts said that the Hindus, it's well known that the Hindus said, they had millions and millions of gods, right? And there's several main gods, but then there's a different type of spirit of God. The Lord, the main God, really is not is an invisible God like ours. The concept of Brahman that just fills all worlds and surrounds all worlds, which is very similar to the Hasidic Jewish theology. So Professor Watts, he says, when Watts on second, by the way, and Doctor Who's on first, and I mean Doctor Who from King Kong Escapes. So, which is spelled H-U. So that's H-U, Who's on first, and Watts, W-A-T-T-S, is on second. And Ideno's on third. It's probably spelled, I-D-E-N-O, Ideno. Anyway, and Tom Morrow is catching today. I don't know. Maybe it's spelled T-E-D-A-E-Y. I don't know. Today. Anyway, Alan Watts said that it's wrong to call the Hindu gods gods. They should be called angels, because they're much more like how we in the West speak of angels, and in the Judeo-Christian tradition speak of angels, than how the Easterners, they're those many gods. They're not gods, but they're spiritual beings. They're angels. I remember talking to a rabbi about this, and it makes sense, because there is the monotheist approach in Hinduism. There are many different interpretations of Hinduism. There's even the atheist approach to Hinduism, much as there is among the archetypalist pagans who don't actually believe that their gods exist, but that nonetheless see them as important archetypes. I was going to mention something else today, which I think is a little bit of heresy, because everybody knows Santa Claus doesn't exist, right? But this one rabbi who I mentioned, maybe I don't need to mention his name, but because I don't want people to harass him, but he said, of course Santa Claus exists. And what I realized is that he's a very big Jungian, this rabbi. You know who it is if you listen to me. And when we say Santa Claus exists as a Jungian archetype, and the way that the saints are venerated in the traditional churches, the Catholic and the Orthodox churches, they both, Nicholas was before the Great Schism, so they're both fans of Nicholas. There's a certain idea that this Jungian archetype that's called Saint Nicholas, it would make sense that he would come and be imbuing the spirit of giving at the season of his Saints' Day, which is a little earlier in December, but nonetheless it's there. The interesting thing is some of the Norse pagans say that Santa Claus is actually Odin, which is interesting, who visits people on Yuletide and imparts his wisdom, etc., etc. So, all this stuff is quite interesting, and I made it home, and that I thank the one true God, the B'nai Shalom, who sent his angels to guard me in all my ways. And let's make it Sushtel of B'chol Derechecha Dayehu V'yasher Chesecha, which reminds me that I have to work on my Haskama for Sefania's Kuntris that he sent me, which means I first have to learn the Kuntris Mistama. So if anybody will remind me, I'll try to remember to do that tomorrow when I have some time. Thank you for listening. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. We'll see you later.